South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers,
It's good!
and Flyers.
Oh, big save by Carter Hart.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app on a Friday edition of the show. We are live on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, and Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Phillies, the final series before the All Star Break is coming up, and we'll be joined by Frank Klose to get more into that at 6:20 tonight. Also, I'll give you my thoughts on last night's NBA Finals Game 2 that you heard right here on 97.3 ESPN. Also, I got to check on this news. Apparently, the Frank Clark has been arrested. So he's facing potentially 15 years in jail. So we'll have to get a little more information on that. National news. Also, don't forget 973ESPN.com, my latest Fitness Friday article. Some good details for you guys there. But let's start off the show. We got to get into the Phillies because, the Phillies, they're going into this weekend with a series with the Red Sox, and this is an important series for them. They need to figure out how serious they are about being contenders this weekend. When you think about this team, you have to realize that they're 4 games right now behind the Mets. And you may think, well, that's not too close. It's not too close, but it also means you're in second place in the division. The Phillies have the most blown saves in all of baseball right now. The most blown saves. So if they don't blow half those saves, they have the lead in the division. So if you have the lead in the division, if you don't blow all of those saves, you have to ask the question. If the Phillies were leading the National League East, would you look at them differently? If they didn't blow half of those leads, would you not look at them differently? And that's why, to me, when I look at the Phillies, I got to be honest with you guys. I'm looking at them and I'm saying that you have to treat this situation as if this team is a contender. In my mind, this team is a contender. Okay? If you're that close, if there's that many what ifs, if things are that up against it. So, why are we looking at this team the way we do? Well, I think it's because it's Negadelphia. I mentioned this to Mike Gill earlier today, and I think part of the problem is that there are some people that no matter what you say, no matter what you do, they're just negative people. They're just negative about everything. And I think part of the problem is that when people look at the Phillies, they don't look at them through the eyes of, per se, watching them on a daily basis. The old saying is that you don't really pay attention to baseball until Memorial Day weekend, right? That's kind of like the old saying. So not everyone's watching the team for the full season. The Phillies are 42-43 on the year. They're 4 games behind the Mets. They have 22 blown saves on the year. So if they don't blow half of those saves, let's say they get 11 wins out of those 22. Let's say they only are 50% better. You're leading the division by a total of 7 games. You have a 7-game lead on the Mets, who are right now 45-38. A flip of 11 games for the Phillies puts them over 50 wins on the year. The only teams right now in the National League with more than 50 wins are the Padres, the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Brewers. So they would be in the same category as the 4 best teams in the entire National League. So I'm not buying into this idea that this team can't win, that this team is not good enough. I just don't buy it. Because the numbers tell me that this team should be better. And if you want to be the person who says the Phillies are always going to lose, the Phillies, they can't do, okay, that's fine. That's your prerogative. I'm not playing that game. I'm not buying into that malarkey. Because what I see on the field is a team that last night can score with the best of them. And aside from Brad Miller going out there and having his 3 home runs, we've seen this team have some big numbers, some big games. And I got to tell you guys, when I look at the Phillies, I see a team that can be contenders, that can be competitive. And we're going to find out this weekend how competitive they can be. Phillies lineup this tonight versus the Red Sox. Are in Boston for their series. I don't like the lineup, though. I got to be honest. This is the first time I've seen a lineup in a while that I didn't like. Why is Harper DHing? But we have Hoskins and Bohm in the field. Harper is a much better outfielder than Hoskins or Bohm are at their respective positions. This strategy that they're doing makes no sense to me. And I get it. It probably is, oh, well, you want to give Harper some rest, blah, blah, blah. I don't care what the reason is. I don't like it, okay? I don't like it. It's like the Phillies don't get it. You know what I mean? It's like they're clueless. It's like they're clueless about how bad their defense is. Listen, I don't think that you can win in any sport without some defense. But it's like the Phillies are in denial about certain things when it comes to their defense. They didn't blow all those saves because of their defense. They blew all those saves because their bullpen stinks. And to say it's better than last year isn't saying much. Great. You're better than dirt. Congratulations. Congratulations. You're better than nothing. So I just have to think that when it comes to this team, there are some things that can be fixed. And I don't know if all the problems can be fixed in one offseason, but I would like to at least see them make a move before the trade deadline to put themselves in a position to be successful down the stretch of the season. Just to show us that you're willing to be competitive. Because I think, like I said, if this was a better bullpen, they would be winning the division right now. By the way, your starting pitchers for the weekend, Vince Velasquez tonight, Matt Moore tomorrow, Aaron Nola on Sunday. So you're getting a lot of hit or misses with this staff. Now, they're going against Garrett Richards tonight. Richards has pitched horrible in recent starts. Perez is a hit or miss. The interesting start is Sunday because you have Aaron Nola versus former Philly Nick Pivetta. And Nick Pivetta is a guy that started out absolutely on fire for the Boston Red Sox. He was just unstoppable, it seemed like, to start the season. But he came back down to earth. He came back down to reality, and ever since then, he's not pitched as well. Okay? His last start was good. Okay? He looked like what he was months ago. But in April, when he was just dominating, it seemed like. I mean, you were like, wow. I mean, they gave up on this guy. You had a 2.81 ERA in April. But in May, he had a 4.82 ERA. June, he had a 5.4 ERA. So the last 2 months have been difficult. They've been rough for him. And I'll be interested to see which version of Pivetta shows up this Sunday versus the Phillies. Is it going to be the guy who pitched great against the A's recently and had an incredible month of April? Or is it going to be the guy that allowed a total of 34 runs over the months of June and May? Which guy shows up on Sunday? So we'll get into more Phillies coming up with Frank Klose at 6:20 tonight. A couple things I also wanted to hit on. First of all, a little international basketball news just dropped a little bit ago. Team USA is preparing for a world without the guys who are in the NBA Finals because their exhibition games start on Saturday. So no Devin Booker, no Drew Holiday, no Chris Middleton for at least the beginning of what's going on in the preparations for the Olympics. And the reason I want to bring that up is because this is the real reason why the NBA doesn't want to have this schedule long term. The NBA really values having their guys in the Olympics. They're the opposite of the NHL. The NHL has this like anger and angst about the Olympics. They look at the Olympics as like a massive inconvenience. Whereas the NBA looks at the Olympics as a showcase for how much international talent is in their league. They view it completely differently. And the reason why the NBA doesn't want to have this schedule that we have right now, which even though people like me and Mike Gill, we love it. We're like, hey, NBA in July, let's go. But in the future, 3 years from now, because remember the Olympics are supposed to be in 2020, now they're in 2021. The next Olympics is in 2024. The NBA doesn't want this quick turnaround between the end of their season and the Olympics. They just don't want it. They don't like this this structure because they value the Olympics in a way that the NHL doesn't. And you have to understand that that's probably part of the reason why the NBA has the success that they have and that the NHL didn't. This was one of the least watched NHL Stanley Cup finals in a long time. Now, Game 5 was the most watched game of the series, but it was the second least watched Stanley Cup clinching game since 2007. The series is down 54% in viewership overall, the Stanley Cup Finals. Meanwhile, you look at the NBA. The NBA is doing just fine. And I know NBC is trying to paint this as, oh, well, we did fine. We're good. We're fine. But it didn't work out that way. And I think that it tells you the different perspectives people have about sports. The reason why the NHL is going to ESPN, at least a big part of it, is because of the fact that they realize that the NBC deal ran its course. All right? And there's a lot of people who are trying to paint, hockey and basketball in these different paints. But the reality is that the NBA Finals, they right now have more viewers than last year in the bubble. And part of that was because that was in September. It's September, October, you're going against the NFL and the Major League Baseball playoffs, basically. So now that you're in July, you're up compared to that, but you're a little down compared to what you were if you were on the regular time of year. So it's hard to make it an apples-to-apples comparison for the NBA. For the NHL, though, you would not expect them to have that poor of a viewership, considering the fact that it is the Stanley Cup final. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how both sports proceed moving forward, because while the NBA values the international play, the NHL doesn't. And I got to ask the question, the NBA is loved, basketball is beloved, people want to watch the NBA. There's way more than watching the NBA than watching the NHL right now. And you have to think the NHL didn't sign with ESPN to keep losing viewers. Some things to keep in mind as we move forward. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. All right, text board is open. 609-403-0973 is the text board to get on the conversation. We're also live on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show. When joining us next, Frank Klose will join the show to get more into the state of the Phillies this weekend and more right here with yours truly, Josh Hennig, at Josh Hennig on Twitter, right here on Game Night. Frank Klose, our Phillies Insider, joins us next.
Tomorrow on Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio.
There he is.
One of baseball's fiercest rivalries begins another chapter this weekend when the Chicago Cubs welcome the St. Louis Cardinals.
Swing and a miss. He struck him out. Kimbrough closes it out.
The Cubs and Cardinals. Coverage begins tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Listen to Major League Baseball on 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's home of the MLB playoffs and the World Series.
The NBA Finals are finally here, and FanDuel Sportsbook has a championship offer you don't want to miss. Because during the finals, new users get 30-1 odds on either team to win their next game. That's right. New users get 30-1 odds on any team to win their next game. That means you can win $150 on a $5 bet. There are so many ways to win with FanDuel Sportsbook during the NBA Finals on their simple-to-use app with unique, fun bet types and exclusive, always-on promotions. New users sign up with promo code Hennig to bet on the NBA Finals with 30-1 odds. Once again, that's promo code Hennig to unlock 30-1 odds on either team to win their next game exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. New users only. Must wagering designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
By now, most people know that nobody beats a Bennett Chevrolet deal. Because when you buy a new Chevy from Bennett, you pay the same as any GM supplier employee pays. That's right, not 1 cent more. Plus, Bennett gives you all the rebates that can add up to 25% off MSRP. That's up to 25% off. And of course, Bennett Chevy has 0% financing available. Think about all the ways you save at Bennett Chevrolet. Plus, right now, we want your trade. So we're paying a minimum $7,000 for any clunker. You heard right, a minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. Nobody pays more than Bennett. You can imagine how much more we'll pay for a good trade. And there's more. You'll never feel any sales pressure and never waste time with stressful negotiating because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Nobody beats Bennett Chevrolet, and we mean nobody. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. This weekend is the final Phillies series until the All Star break. All-Star break, and then boom, they're off. So where are the Phillies at right now? What do we take away from the Cubs series? We look up ahead to the Red Sox series starting tonight. Well, joining us right now here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN to get more into all of those details is Frank Klose, who joins us right now here on Game Night to get more into all of that. Frank, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. So let's start breaking down where the Phillies are. You know, obviously the Cubs are a bad team right now, right? You know, they're just not a very good team. So what is a realistic takeaway from that series? Like, can we really look at that series and say, hey, the Phillies have turned a corner? Did they just beat a bad team? You know, what do we take away from that series?
Well, I think you could take away that when healthy, the lineup can do a few things. You saw them score a lot of runs, which is something you're not used to with this Phillies team this year. And I think that's probably the most encouraging thing. The game that they did lost, the bullpen got knocked around a little bit, but they went to the sort of the bottom half of the bullpen. And of the bullpen, you did see you got something out of Brandon Kinsler. He had a couple of nice outings, so maybe he's somebody that can now help you down the stretch that you're getting back off of injury. So even though it's, I don't want to just be dismissive and say it's just the Cubs, because the Phillies really seem confident. They feel like it. It almost feels like that. Now that they know they're all healthy and they're all together, Andrew McCutchen, seemed like he might have an injury, and then he came out and it was in the starting lineup. That's big deal. So I think they're happy to be with one another, that they're firing on all cylinders in terms of the offense, and that's a really great sign as you head to the All Star break. It'd be nice to finish on a high note.
Yeah, I know Kruk said early in the game broadcast last night, he made the comment that, hey, this game better work out for Girardi because you can't go by the numbers and the lefties don't hit, right? Because they pulled Hoskins and McCutchen out of the lineup, and then boom, Brad Miller hits a couple bombs. Well, Brad Miller's back in the lineup today, but Frank, I got to tell you, I'm not loving the lineup tonight, because why on earth is Bryce Harper DHing, and we have the two worst corner fielders in baseball still on the field?
Well, I think this has a lot to do with how Bryce Harper has felt. The injuries that he's had, he's been pretty banged up. I think this is a way of giving kind of your cornerstone, and the Phillies paid him all that money to be their cornerstone, give him the quote unquote night off without giving him the night off. So I'm not surprised that one of these games would go to Harper at this time. Although I do agree with you that the defense would be better if you were going to put either Hoskins or Bohm at the designated hitter position, but I understand why. Bryce Harper. I think if you look at how the team has, even with the eye test, how they looked with Harper and without Harper in Harper's absence, and it's night and day. So I think they want their leader in the lineup, and this is a way to sort of rest his back. That's been nagging him. I mean, and he's kind of battled through a lot of these injuries. Even when he's not on the IL, he really just hones in and really bears through a little bit of pain to stay in the lineup. So I get it. So I think that one of those guys probably will be a DH at some point this weekend, though.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm asking that, Frank, is because, and I'm sticking by this theory until someone convinces me otherwise. Maybe you convince me otherwise, but I believe that the solution for the Phillies is the trade deadline. Because if you think about it, if they don't blow half their saves, they're winning the National League East. They're ahead of the Mets if they don't blow half those saves. And half those saves were literally because the bullpen just gave up. They just couldn't get the job done, right? So, go ahead, yeah.
Not just to say, it's like they got into their own head. So
right.
I think that's definitely the case. But go on.
Right. So to me, if you go by the numbers, this is a competitive team. And I think that Dombrowski and everybody up there needs to look at this team and say, this is a team that should be winning the division. And if we just make a couple changes, we could legitimately be not running away with the division, but more than competitive in the division.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Phillies, going into this year, Dave Dombrowski figured that they could at the very least hang in there And then maybe, as you say, add some pieces at the trade deadline. I think what the Phillies do still hinges upon not so much this Red Sox series. I think the Phillies can get away with winning 1 out of 3. Not that you want to win 1 out of 3, but they have a shot at more. Looking at some of these pitching matchups, but it's really those games after the All Star break, those 12 games in division. Once you get past the All Star break, how are the Phillies going to do against their own division, particularly on the road? Now, here's the good news, right? Because the Phillies have struggled at times against their own division at home, but the Phillies have 4 against the Marlins, at home, right? And they kind of come back on that doubleheader on the 16th at home against the Marlins. You feel better about that than being on the road. 4 against the Braves at home, and 4 against the Nationals. Now, you have those 2 games against the Yankees in New York in between all that, but I'm looking at this stretch here, and that before they get to Pittsburgh on July 30th, and they will have shown you whether or not they can hang in this division or not. And if the answer is a resounding yes, well then you feel more comfortable trying to add some pieces. So I think that is the key stretch here. How they do against the Marlins, the Braves, and the Nationals. The Mets aren't in this stretch, but you want to see how they are against. I mean, let's face it. All these teams have been kind of equally matched up to this point.
Frank Klose joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Check out all of his Phillies coverage over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter at Frank Klose on Twitter. Don't forget his Phillies mailbag every Tuesday with Mike Gill on the Sports Bash. Frank, the other part of this weekend is I want to see if the Phillies get Hoskins as well as a DH, because I think Hoskins is the most tradable element right now. I think he's at an age and at a controllability that makes him appealing to an American League team that doesn't have a DH, because they're really outside of what? JD Martinez in Boston, Nelson Cruz in Minnesota, and Kanan out there in Oakland. Not every American League team has like a bona fide DH out there. So to me, I look around and say, hey, if I'm the Phillies, I basically start marketing Hoskins as a DH, and maybe this is the weekend you start presenting him that way.
Well, I'm not really sure that Hoskins would be under consideration to be moved by the Phillies during the season. I think that they are trying to win with what they have for the most part. I mean, they might make some pieces, move some in and out, but I don't think it'll be him. I think right now he is kind of too central to the core of the team, and you can argue that he shouldn't be for the long term, right? I think you could certainly make the case that he doesn't have the defense that's required to be on the team long term. But I think as they're trying to sneak into the playoffs, and I say sneak in because they're really going to have to just be the best of these teams in the National League East. You don't want to disrupt the clubhouse. So I think a trade like that is definitely on the table. However, I think that trade would happen in the offseason. So I don't see the Phillies doing anything that would really disrupt the core. I think the moves that they make are going to be like the ones you saw way back in 2006, if your memory is that good, where they added Jamie Moyer for next to nothing. They added Jose Hernandez, Jeff Conine. They were trying to fill in pieces around the edges when they kind of went on a last-minute run, even after trading Bobby Abreu and Corey Lytle before that. So I think the goal for this year will be see what you can add at the trade deadline without giving up your top prospects and without spending over the luxury tax. I think that's going to be kind of the parameters that the Phillies are looking towards at this trade deadline. And so maybe not a Rhys Hoskins heading in a deal right now, maybe off season. I think they'll try to see what they can get for Adam Hastley and Mickey Moniak and who knows, maybe even try to give somebody a shot at Scott Kingery. I think there will be teams that would unload a veteran for players like that to see what they can get out of them. I don't think the Phillies are going to be moving anybody on their top prospect list.
What do you say to the people who say, hey, you just played the Cubs, they stink, you should call the Cubs and get some of their players?
Cubs still have a better record than the Phillies as of today, right? So no, they're like right around each other. The Cubs are an interesting group because they really do have a lot of good players that they can move that will be free agents. Craig Kimbrell, who was absolutely awful for the Cubs the last 2 years, all of a sudden he remembers how to pitch. The thing about Kimbrell, he is on that 2018 Red Sox team that won the World Series that Dave Dombrowski put together. And Dave Dombrowski also let him walk, so that's something else to consider. But, I don't know that the Phillies have what it takes to trade for somebody like Kimbrel. I think that's the Cub that you would really want on this team, because the Phillies obviously could use a lockdown closer. But like I was just saying, the type of prospect the Phillies will trade, I don't think that's the type of prospect that the Cubs would want in exchange for Kimbrel. Now, they're going to be making a lot of moves. Chris Bryant, perhaps. Anthony Rizzo, perhaps. Jason Hayward. Javi Baez. The Cubs could really just super, I would say have a super sale, but they could really stock up on some prospects in the next couple weeks. So the fact that the Cubs are tanking like this probably did them a favor, because now they feel like they can trade pieces. But so yeah, a lot of people will be calling the Cubs. I think if the Phillies would be interested in anybody, it would probably be Kimbrel. But I just don't know. I just don't know that the Phillies have the type of prospect that the Cubs would want in return.
By the way, you're right. The Cubs are 44 and 45. The Phillies are 42 and 43. But the Cubs are 9 games out of first place. The Phillies are 4 games out of first place. So definitely has a different feel around the record, which is funny, because I was thinking about this earlier in the show, Frank. You have 4 teams with 50 wins in the National League, and 3 of them are in the National League West. So it's like, it's all subjective at this point. Like you said, the Phillies are going for the division, and that's it. They have no chance for the wild card. The wild card is coming out of the West. I think we all can sign off on that at this point.
By the way, the Phillies just took 2 out of 3 from the Pirates. So the Padres. So that's a good, that's a pretty good sign. While even some teams in their division are losing to the Pirates. So maybe the Phillies showed something in that series a little bit too before you saw them play the Cubs. So, but yeah, this is going to be division or bust. And the way things are going for the division, and all the key injuries that teams have had, especially the Braves, right? The Braves have really been hit by injuries. So I can see the Phillies hanging in there. But yeah, you're right. I think the Padres, Giants, and Dodgers, they're probably, I say probably, Gabe Kapler is known for some of his last minute collapses, right? Including last year with the Giants, by the way. But barring one of those 3 teams are probably all in the playoffs as the division winner and both the wild cards.
Yeah, and of course, don't forget, in the Central, you have the Reds at 45 and 42. Even though they're behind the Brewers, they still have a better record than the Phillies. So even that situation, and I can see a team like the Reds making a pretty big trade deadline deal, because they seem to be an organization that's kind of that's got the number of prospects to be able to make a move too.
They're a team that's always puzzled me. They seemed to go for it a couple of years ago, then backed off, then they started selling some pieces. So they're probably going to lose Nick Castellanos to free agency. So it would be nice if they tried to go for it, but they just lost Sonny Gray to the injured list, and that's a pretty big blow to the Reds. So we'll see. I mean, losing one of your key starting pitchers can really take a team out of the race right now, as we see here. But Sonny Gray, depending on how bad this is, that could really set them back. Although it sounds like with the All Star break, he's hoping to really just be ready soon thereafter.
Now, speaking of the All Star break, obviously the Phillies only have 2 guys in the All Star game, so it's not like you're going to have a bunch of guys, trotting out the Denver. So how important is it for the Phillies to get some of the rest? You mentioned Bryce Harper. It's probably going to help his health being off for that week, right? Who else is this going to potentially help having this week off?
Even some of the veterans like Andrew McCutchen, McCutchen, who's been playing unbelievably lately, he's somebody that could probably use the rest. I mean, he's an old man in baseball years. He's younger than I am, but an old man in baseball years. So you want to see him get a little bit of rest, and it wouldn't hurt. I'm a big guy in terms of the mental aspect of the game. Some of the players that have been struggling, especially in the bullpen, a couple days off really could be nice. I don't know about you, Josh. If you ever have a bad day at work and just go sit on the beach, I know you never have a bad day at work at 97.3 ESPN, but a lot of people do. Just the change of pace, the change of scenery is good sometimes. So in terms of getting focused. So I definitely think that the bullpen, especially the ones that felt like they can't get a break lately, that the back end that were responsible for a lot of the blown saves. The Hector Neris's of the world, it wouldn't be bad from that perspective to kind of come back with what feels like a fresh start. So I think that'll be important there.
Listen, we all need some days to unplug, unwind, and do reset buttons. So, and you know what? Doesn't matter what profession you're in, no matter what your job is, we all need to hit the unplug button sometimes. Frank Klose joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, our Phillies Insider over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Phillies back in action tonight versus the Red Sox. That's where I want to finish up with you, Frank, is the starting pitching, because we have Velasquez, Moore, and Nola this weekend. So not exactly the best of the bunch, but the most, you could argue the most interesting, because when Velasquez pitches well, he pitches really well. And the same with Matt Moore. When he's pitching well, he has pitched really well this year. And we saw Aaron Nola tie a major league record in strikeouts. So you have three pitchers this weekend who, when they're on, they're really on. But when they're bad, Frank, it's ugly.
Well, I think we need to look also at the opposition, right, for the week. So the Red Sox are going with Garrett Richards tonight, who's a veteran. You might remember him from the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of California. Well, Garrett Richards, 4-5, 4.88 ERA. I think he's somebody that the Phillies can get to. So if they can kind of hang in, if the offense is coming to life like it has in the last few days, I think there's an opportunity there. And Martin Perez, he's actually had a really nice year for the Red Sox. The veteran, you probably know him best as a member of the Texas Rangers, which feels like forever ago. He's got a number of years in the majors, but he's had probably one of his best years in recent memory so far. So I think he's the biggest challenge. But the starting pitching matchup that I'm really looking forward to is Sunday, Aaron Nola versus Nick Pivetta. Which Aaron Nola are the Phillies going to get, and which Nick Pivetta are the Phillies going to get? Is this going to be like an Arrieta situation where they're like licking their chops, like eager to face him and come out big? I think that's a possibility. So if you're just looking at the starting pitching, now the Red Sox certainly have a prolific offense, but I think the Phillies at least can hang with them this weekend against Richards, Perez, and Nick Pivetta. That'll be the interesting one to see how they head to the All Star break facing their old friend who couldn't seem to get it together as a starter for the Phillies. But what do you know? All of a sudden, here he is, 7-3 in the starting rotation the entire time during the first half, and pitching. His ERA is 4.09, but Nick Pivetta has given them some nice starts. So this will be a really interesting one for me.
Well, I mentioned it before you came on, Frank. Pivetta had a really rough June, but his teammate Richards had a worse June, because while Pivetta had an over 5 ERA in the month of June, Garrett Richards had a 7 ERA. So you're having two pitchers who had a horrible month, and then both of them had solid starts for their first start of July. So who knows what's going to happen this weekend? Yeah,
and you kind of expect that kind of regression. I mean, the thing about Jake Arrieta, I think that who the Phillies just faced, in his later years, he started leaking some oil halfway through the year. Well, maybe that's the case with a veteran like Richards at this point, and Nick Pivetta, at the end of the day, maybe people realize he's Nick Pivetta, so they figured out how to get to him. But no, he had a really nice start, because we were talking on Twitter, because you said, oh, well, Nick Pivetta hasn't been great. I said, well, did you see his last start? He's coming off a really nice one, 7 innings with no earned runs on July 4th at Oakland, and Oakland, of course, is a very good lineup. But you're right. Some of them have been leaking oil a little bit. I know a few times over the course of the year, various media personalities have proclaimed the Nick Pivetta deal the steal of the century. I would not go that far. I think Nick Pivetta has been a number 5 starter for them, and the Phillies, I think, have a shot of doing something to their old friend, if they're friends. I don't know. Are they friends?
I have no idea at this point. I mean,
just kidding.
I will say the two they took from that first fall, the fact that Garrett Richards at this point is a veteran pitcher still blows my mind, because I remember he was such a young, big prospect coming up for the Angels. He had a couple good years out there for the Angels. And the second thing is, if I'm the Red Sox, I'm looking at Pivetta and say, I just need you to be better than Joe Blanton was for the 2008 Phillies. And we could do things with you. You know what I mean? Because people forget, for as great as he was and hitting that home run, having some nice starts, it's not like he was like some elite pitcher in 2008. Like, people forget, he had a pretty bloated ERA for half that year. So I think if you're the Red Sox, you're saying, you pitch better than Blanton, we're happy.
Yeah, good example. I mean, I still remember where I was hearing the Phillies got Blanton. I thought, oh, okay. I mean, I thought Blanton was the guy that could help them hang in there and win games. Now, the interesting thing will be with Garrett Richards. He has pitched more starts than he's pitched since 2015, which was his last real full season with the Angels. So be really interesting to see if he's able to continue. I mean, you're right. It feels like it was just yesterday that he was a rookie, but he was born in the 80s, right? Not many players are born in the 80s. The young folk, right? They're old like me, born in the 80s, right? So, but yeah, so he is up there in terms of baseball years now. 32 years old, going on 33. 33, yeah, just turned 33. Excuse me. So yeah, that's old in baseball years, and we'll see if the Phillies can get to him. But he's a nice, he was somebody over the last couple of years I thought the Phillies should have taken a shot on, because after San Diego, it seemed like he was. Even when he went to San Diego, it seemed like he was a good option out there, and then the way he kind of bounced around, he was a low cost acquisition for the Red Sox, like Martin Perez and Nick Pivetta, by the way. So the Red Sox are really putting a lot of their weight into these three arms, which really don't have that great a track record the last couple of years. So you got to wonder if they can keep it going.
He's Frank Klose. Follow him on Twitter at Frank Klose. That's Klose with a K. His Phillies mailbag up on the website each and every week. He talks about Mike Gill on Tuesdays on the Sports Bash. Phillies, Red Sox, the final series before the All Star break. And we appreciate Frank joining us here on GameNight to talk more about the Phillies. Frank, good stuff today. We'll catch you a little bit later after the break.
Always good to talk to you, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, Joe Blanton, for those who may not remember, was like the last of the Mohicans when it came to the A's, because that was around the time when like they traded away and they lost Zito and Hudson and Mulder, and then they had Dan Herron, and then like Blanton was the last guy standing, and they traded him away too. So, yeah, if Nick Pivetta can be better than Joe Blanton was, I think the Red Sox will be happy. So again, not that Blanton was bad, but I think that there's a little bit of a love for Joe Blanton that Phillies team. People forget that he wasn't exactly the cleanest pitcher in the world when it came to outings. But all right, we'll get to you guys' thoughts and comments next. 609-403-0973 is the text board to get on the conversation. 609-403-0973. We're also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can comment, join the conversation. Phillies have a week against the Red Sox. NBA Finals, Suns up 2-0. Also, that and more we can touch on with you right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. If you have the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, you would already have gotten the alerts from the latest stories and topics we have this week on the website, 973ESPN.com. You get all the Phillies, Sixers, Eagles, and Flyers coverage right there on the 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
Hey, South Jersey, check out Saturday's edition of The Locker Room with Billy Schwein. Scott McKenna will debate if the Phillies' mini hot streak is real and if there will be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. Plus, former NBA official and current rules analyst for ABC and ESPN TV broadcast Steve Javie checks in. And the Beach Patrol report, this week's results and interviews for the Cape May County lifeguard races. All that and more. It's The Locker Room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN.
On some models, excludes Corvette with GM financing, excludes prior sales. See dealer for details. By now, most people know that nobody beats a Bennett Chevrolet deal. Because when you buy a new Chevy from Bennett, you pay the same as any GM supplier employee pays. That's right, not 1 cent more. Plus, Bennett gives you all the rebates that can add up to 25% off MSRP. That's up to 25% off. And of course, Bennett Chevy has 0% financing available. Think about all the ways you save at Bennett Chevrolet. Plus, right now, we want your trade. So we're paying a minimum $7,000 for any clunker. You heard right, a minimum $7,000 towards any pre-owned in stock. Nobody pays more than Bennett. You can imagine how much more we'll pay for a good trade. And there's more. You'll never feel any sales pressure and never waste time with stressful negotiating, because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Nobody beats Bennett Chevrolet, and we mean nobody. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
The NBA Finals are finally here, and FanDuel Sportsbook has a championship offer you don't want to miss. Because during the finals, new users get 30-1 odds on either team to win their next game. That's right, new users get 30-1 odds on any team to win their next game. That means you can win $150 on a $5 bet. There are so many ways to win with FanDuel Sportsbook during the NBA Finals on their simple-to-use app with unique, fun bet types and exclusive, always-on promotions. New users sign up with promo code Hennig to bet on the NBA Finals with 30-1 odds. Once again, that's promo code Hennig to unlock 30-1 odds on either team to win their next game exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. New users only. Must wagering designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problems? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Night. Friday edition on 97.3 ESPN. We get to your guys' thoughts and comments on all the topics of the sports day in just a bit. 609-403-0973 is the text board. We are also live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just follow 973 ESPN to watch the show as we are live here in the Matt Black Kia studios. Matt Black Kia, we get you approved today. Matt Black Kia, Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. Visit them online at mattblackkia.com. Also, don't forget my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Fight Night is back, and it's even bigger than ever before because this Saturday night, FanDuel is giving away new users 30-1 odds on either Conor McGregor or Dustin Poirier to win at UFC 264. That means you can win $150 on a $5 bet. If you already have an account with FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel is letting all customers bet the fights risk-free. All you got to do if you're a new user is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app, use my promo code Hennig to get on all the action. Don't miss out on the fight of the summer, McGregor versus Poirier. It is the trilogy fight tomorrow night, and you can bet it risk-free this Saturday night. If you already have a FanDuel Sportsbook account, all you got to do is opt in for the risk-free bet with FanDuel Sportsbook and then jump on to UFC 264 and make your risk-free bet. It's all a part of FanDuel Fight Night when you sign up with my promo code Hennig. It's all exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Must be 21 or to play and present in New Jersey. New users only. Must wager in designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. $150 max bonus. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And I mentioned this to you guys a little bit yesterday. We'll get more into UFC 264 today and tomorrow. But to me, it's a no-brainer for the risk-free bet. Okay, whether you are a current user or a new user, unless you have like a strong feeling about McGregor or Poirier, you go one of either two ways. Okay, if you're a new user and you're going for the 30-1 odds on either McGregor or Poirier to win, that's where you go. But if you're an existing user and you want to use a risk-free bet tomorrow night, it's so easy to me. It's Gilbert Burns. So Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Thompson is the co-main event. Remember, Burns just recently fought for the UFC welterweight championship, and he lost decisively to Kamaru Usman. Now, he had a couple moments in the fight where he looked pretty good. But I think that Burns showcased that he is just not on Usman's level right now when it comes to just being an all-around fighter. But before that, remember, Usman had won 6 fights in a row, and he had won 8 of his last 9 overall. So you're talking about a guy who is phenomenally talented, a guy who defeated a former champion in Tyron Woodley, defeated one of the greatest submission artists in MMA history in Damian Maia. He defeated an up-and-comer in Gunnar Nelson. He took down all these different guys, and the only fight that he lost was a flash knockout to Dan Hooker. And that was all the way back in 2018 before the Usman fight. I think Burns is serious when he says he wants to come out there and prove that he deserves that title. And he's going against a guy that he can easily handle, because Stephen Thompson, at this point in his career, I think Thompson is past his prime. I think Burns is currently in his prime as a fighter. I think Thompson is past his prime. Burns is younger than Thompson. You're talking about a guy in Burns who is 34 years old. He just turns 34. Turns 35 a little bit later this month, I should say. But Stephen Thompson is an old 38. People forget that before he became an MMA fighter, he was a guy who had fought in numerous karate and kickboxing tournaments for years. So he's got a lot of history under his belt as a combat fighter before he got to MMA. And you look at all of his losses, it's against guys who are just more skilled than him. When he first got to the UFC, he lost to Matt Brown back in 2012. He lost to Tyron Woodley, and he had a draw with him the fight before. He lost to Darren Till and Anthony Pettis, two guys who have just more well-rounded talent than him. And his last two fights that he has won, they've been decision wins. For a guy who's known for being this great kickboxer, karate master, he's only got 7 of his career 16 wins by knockouts and TKOs. He's got a lot of decisions on his resume. Meanwhile, he's going up against a guy in Burns who is extremely motivated, and Burns has finished 14 of his 19 UFC wins. Here's what you do. You take that risk-free bet, you put it on Gilbert Burns, you ride with it, and you know what? If for whatever reason Burns doesn't win, even though we're riding with him, you know what? No harm, no foul, because it's a risk-free bet. Thanks to FanDuel Sportsbook. We'll get more into UFC 264 tomorrow with all of my picks. We'll be talking with Mark Romani from ESPN.com. UFC 264 out there in Vegas. I want to get to this one text before we get out of here. 609-403-0973 is the text board. Texter chimed in. He says, the Phillies lineup is finally starting to click, Josh. I think Archie Bradley should be the Phillies closer. I thought that from day one. Here's the problem, Texter. I don't even know if Archie Bradley is the guy who should be the closer. I think the Phillies need to go out and trade for a closer. I think they need to go out there and try to find a guy. Mike Gills mentioned this before. Find a guy on a losing team who has already been closing this year and just try to ride with it. Go with the old school method. Okay, just go with a guy who at least can go out there and do something for you. I don't think that Bradley is the solution per se. I think you call a team, like maybe, for example, if you think the Cardinals are out of it at this point, you call and ask them about Alex Reyes, okay? He's a guy that can go out there and close. Okay? Kimbrel would be ideal, but I don't know if the Cubs are going to give him up for what you want to get for him. There's certain other guys out there that you could call about. Ian Kennedy down with the Rangers. Not the sexiest pick in the world, but he is an option. So there are guys out there you can go out there and get. I think if Archie Bradley became your secondary closer and your setup man, I'd be cool with that. I'm done with the Neris, Alvarado, Ranger Suarez experiment. But that's just me. All right, I'll be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock following Billy Schweim in the locker room. All right here on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great weekend. Have a great night. I'll catch you tomorrow.
The NBA playoffs continue. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and the Suns survived 42 from Giannis and take a commanding 2-0 lead over the Bucks. Now we head to Milwaukee where the Bucks face a critical Game 3.
It's kind of hard to enjoy the game when you're losing, but we're going to figure it out.
Game 3 of the Bucks and Suns. Coverage begins Sunday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
The NBA Finals, exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's sports leader.